Dr. Phil is here today. He's going to help me create a psychological profile for members of the birther movement. You know, I may not be a licensed therapist, but I know a thing or two about psychology myself. I really do. And after months of critical and exhaustive analysis and weeks of studying various forms of psychopathology, including Freud's theory of transference and its role in the therapeutic process, I have finally come to a diagnosis of the birthers. They're nuts.
Coming up on the Joy Behar Show, President Obama finally releases his birth certificate, and Donald Trump is claiming victory. Will the birther movement and Trump finally back off, or is there more to come? Then, Dr. Phil is here to talk about everything from the royal wedding to the psychology of cheating to Oprah's final show. Plus, after the royal wedding is over, some big questions remain. Can Prince William save the monarchy? And where does Kate fit into that equation? That and more starting right now.
President Obama released his birth certificate proving Donald Trump wrong, yet Trump still claimed victory. Can you believe it? Can you believe this? You know, next time I lose an Emmy Award, I'm going to run up on stage and give an acceptance speech. That's it. That's what I'm going to do. I don't care if it's true or not. So the birth certificate should end the controversy, right? Wrong. The birthers aren't buying its validity, and Trump is now being called racist for questioning the president's academic record. With me to discuss are television host Donnie Deutsch and professor of anthropology and education at Columbia University, Marc Lamont Hill. Guys, is it over, Donald, for Trump?
First of all, I like that you have a smart guy and a dumb guy. It's very important that you have there's usually a Pulitzer Prize winner or a professor. Before we get to the professor, no, it's not over for him. I mean, this birther...
It's not over for Trump.
No, it's not, because for a few reasons. Number one, the birther issue is a disgusting issue. I know Trump, and I'm friendly with Trump, and I said to him, I don't know what you're doing with this issue. You should be coming up, obviously, talking about the deficit, economy. There is a place for you, but he got a hold of this thing. No, because 45% of Republicans, before this came out, thought, not Tea Parties, Republicans, thought that this president was not born in this country. So you know what will happen now? Maybe it'll be 40% and not 45%.
Of Republicans or Tea Parties?
Republicans, 45% in the last poll. This is before the birth certificate. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to do anything. And Trump, you know, the master spinner, did he come out? What I would advise him to say is, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. You know, and on this day, no, but he said he came out, I'm proud, and you know, so this is not going to affect him. The people that are buying into what Trump is selling are going to still buy. There's no difference.
So, Mark, do you think that's true?
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Donald Trump didn't come out here to prove the president wrong. He didn't really come out to investigate any crime. What Donald Trump wanted to do was create a mess and draw attention to himself, and that's what he did. And he knows that there's a sector of the American public that absolutely refuses to believe the legitimacy of President Obama. You could have a videotape of him coming out of the womb with a state flag of Hawaii sticking out the back, and they still wouldn't believe that it's true. There's nothing you can do to those people, and he knows it. He's having fun.
Yeah, my problem with the birther issue...
but wait a minute. Now he's coming out with the credentials about Harvard, Mark. How racist do you think that is?
It's fundamentally racist, and the irony is Donald Trump himself is a beneficiary of far more unearned privilege in terms of academics than President Obama is, but this is what always happens. We'll take the black guy who was magna cum laude from Harvard and say he's unqualified, and then you'll take the rich white guy who gets his kids into Wharton Business School even though they're not qualified, and with absolutely any attention.
Actually, I have to challenge. I went to Wharton, and his daughter Ivanka went to Wharton. She's very, very qualified. That aside,
I don't mean her. I don't mean her. I'm saying as an example.
Well, I'm going to take Donald down. Listen to me. I'm going to take Donald because I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I will say this, that the birther issue is a racist issue. It is...
Do you think Trump is a racist?
I said I don't think... I'm not putting Trump in that. I'm saying this, when you bring up things and say things like, I'm talking about the Tea Partiers in general, is this guy born in this country, and I want the Constitution back, and affirm this is black and white issues. There's just no ands, if, or buts about it. And the reality is, and I'd love to hear from the professor, because he's much more qualified as an African-American to talk about this than I am as a white guy, that when you go outside of New York City and L.A. and a lot of this country is still back in the dark ages, and I don't mean that as a metaphor. I mean, it's pathetic, the racism that still exists in this country. To say it's not there, we don't have our heads. We have our heads on
saying it's not there, but we don't have to put up with this type of lying that goes on. Let me just show you something that Donald said, so we can see what this quote was. Go ahead.
The word is, according to what I've read, that he was a terrible student when he went to Occidental. He then gets to Columbia. He then gets to Harvard. I heard at Columbia, wasn't a very good student. He then gets to Harvard. How do you get into Harvard if you're not a good student? Now, maybe that's right or maybe it's wrong, but I don't know why he doesn't release his records.
He heard.
Yeah,
He must have the
by
ears,
the way, it's
he has
a
the ears of a Baptist guy.
I have to say, and as I said, I like Donald, and he's my friend, and we agree on that. Just this whole issue is wrong. It's just wrong. And by the way...
Don, you need better friends, man.
No, you know what? Look, I have to say, I just could... This issue, he's right. And to suggest that is wrong, it's repulsive. And by the way, even if his grades weren't good, who cares?
Well,
who cares at this point?
But it's not true. Don't even say that.
Even if I don't care whether they got A's or B's. And by the way, I'll show you some this morning. So it's like, but it's still barking on that issue.
Does that mean that everyone who went to Harvard, who graduated magna cum laude or summa cum laude, like maybe Thomas Jefferson should be suspect?
Right.
In other words, would the university give him that degree if it wasn't true? He's indicting Harvard.
No, of course. No, what he's suggesting...
He's saying he shouldn't have gotten to Harvard in the first place.
What he suggested is he got in because he was black in affirmative action. That's the undertow of that.
But the fact is, most people who get into college on affirmative action, quote unquote, aren't black people. Athletes account for 20% of the people who get recruited. Wait, but I'm talking about on Ivy League campuses, 20% of those people who are recruited there are recruited for athletics, not for being black. When you look at the people who get the biggest beneficiaries, it's people whose parents went to the school or parents who...
I got to tell you right there, as a guy who went to Wharton, I have a lot of wealthy friends whose kids are getting in. The professor is right. I'm not going to mention any names. I got a lot of friends whose kids have gotten into my alma mater.
White kids.
And that's world. Yeah. And that's the world. And that doesn't make the world a bad place. That's just reality.
And yet nobody would question a white kid coming out of there. Nobody questioned Justice John Roberts, who graduated from Harvard, for example.
Exactly. If anything, Joy, it's evidence that he did belong. If you can get into Harvard and graduate magna cum laude and be editor of the Law Review, and you're somehow unqualified, more power to you. And you can become president. I mean, come on. It's an absurd argument. All this is about is Donald Trump attempting to gin up the tinfoil hat-wearing people in the American populace who happen to be racist. And there's a lot of them left, and he knows what he can do with them because it draws attention and expands his brand.
Okay, does this remind you of the swift boating that went on when John Kerry was running? These people make up a lie, they continue the lie, they perpetuate the lie, and then people start to believe it. They destroyed Kerry.
Look, the reason people question why Obama, at this point, because he had this trump card, no pun intended, to play for a long time, it was the first time the polls that were showing that the independents, because of Trump, we're starting to pay a little attention to this.
Don't you think he's dangerous?
Right. And
Trump is dangerous.
Well, the good news we have now in this world, there's also a dark underbelly to it, is that we have this 24/7 over-mediaized society. So the truth, I don't know if the swift boat thing, if it came out today, where the internet is today versus, we've had dramatic differences even in the last 6 and 8 and 10 years. We self-correct fairly fast today. So the good news is we are a democratic policing, self-policing media society at this point, and it does backfire.
Okay, now you know what another point that was interesting this week was Lawrence O'Donnell on your network went after NBC tooth and nail, saying that they should fire Donald Trump. He threw in the gauntlet. Is that a good idea?
No, look, Lawrence is a very bright guy, and
he
Lawrence
sure is.
But that's absurd. That's absurd. Donald Trump has a entertainment show there, and it's a free speech country. He has a right to say what he wants to say, and people have a right to turn him off. I think Lawrence suggesting that NBC should take a political stand and then take him off the air is equally as absurd as what Trump is saying.
But I think I agree. I don't think that he should be, Donald Trump should be taken off. If anything, those of us who watch Donald Trump's show should stop watching it. That's how we send a message.
That's exactly.
We can send it through our paper.
They're saying that NBC is just watching and doing nothing, you know.
Right. And that's the point, Joy. You know, you can't criticize them you can't criticize the media when you're part of the media constructing the problem.
Okay. And you can't, if NBC all of a sudden basically comes out and says, well, we're voting blue state, that's a little bit of a problem.
Yes or no? Is Donald becoming unhinged?
No. He's exactly who he is.
Thanks, guys, very much. We'll be right back. Thank you, Mark. I'm sorry.